Radio.
All right, so you are listening to Infiltrate Radio, and we're on episode number 42, Biz. 42 we're on. So my name is Patrick Joanne.
And I'm Bizzle Jans.
And on the show today, we've got Mr. James Abrams, filmmaker.
Howdy.
What's going on, man?
Everything and nothing at all, which seems to be a theme this year.
Absolutely. Yeah, it feels like some days it feels like you haven't done anything or left the house. At least for me, I feel like I haven't left the house in friggin' weeks, except for to go to Starbucks occasionally and go through the drive-through at Starbucks.
He's a cheater. He's finding his way.
Yeah. But all right. So before we get started here, our usual thing. What are we drinking? So James, I guess because you're the guest, we'll start with you.
Sure.
You got something special over there?
I'm drinking a Glenfiddich 12, single malt Scotch whiskey.
Delicious.
Which is out of its box, but here's the box.
You're gonna be drinking the whole bottle? Just
not that fast. No, I have a little
yeah, I
mug
started
right
getting into scotches in the past probably like year and a half. I never really dug them, just like the peatiness in them kind of bothered me. But recently I've started getting back into some of them. I don't know all the names. I'm not fancy, but I'll drink
You
it.
liar.
If it tastes good, I'll drink it. So
I'm a poser. I pretend to know more than I do, but I definitely enjoy whiskey-based drinks the most.
You know what? I watched something a while ago. I forget what the name of it. I think it was a special on Netflix or Apple, one of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about whiskey. And what surprised me is that everyone I knew that I've ever come in contact with was like, you don't put ice in your whiskey. You don't do that. And I watched, because you want to keep it pure or whatever, the actual whiskey, and you don't want to water it down. And then I watched this show on whiskey, and all these master distillers are like, you add a couple of drops of water to it to open it up, or you add an ice cube to it to open up the whiskey, the scotch or whatever. So it's just funny because I always drink it on the rocks or with something.
I have mine on the rocks here as well.
Yeah, I usually do like ice, but just neat. Like if I've never tasted it, or if it's really good stuff. If it's like cheap shelf whiskey, I'll mix it with club soda too.
Sure.
It's like they've done it before, that they expect you to add the ice and that they've got years worth of people fucking drinking it. Their knowledge base.
But Biz has got the light show behind him with Bob Marley and stuff going on.
Yeah, man. I figured I'd try to change it up a little, like spruce it up,
Yeah, it's nice. I actually looked at backdrops today, Biz.
Ooh, okay. You have a decent backdrop as it is.
We'll start getting a little fancy. Well, these are just some paper screens. But what are you drinking over there?
James knows all about keeping it fancy, man. Like as a filmmaker, he knows what's up. All right. Anyway, I'm drinking. I'm drinking good old.
Whoa, Arizona.
Arnold Palmer half and half. Nice little peach and lemonade.
Have you ever heard that Arnold Palmer? So there's some news person talking about Arnold Palmer, and she messes up how his name is said. Just look it up. Just Google like news anchor.
I think I've actually seen it. I don't want to admit this too hard, but in my spare time, once I've watched all the videos of ridiculousness that YouTube has to offer, I start watching people messing up on live TV. For some reason, watching people suffer in front of a camera is just
that's far too cringe. I can't put myself through that. You should look up the audio of the directors in the ear of the people on broadcast live with them speaking.
Oh, they have
that's a treat. That's a real treat.
That's very, very similar to like the original sound coming out of a vocalist mic on stage, like isolated from everything else without any effects processing, like just the raw,
just too much mouth sounds.
Yeah, no, like someone edited a Michael Jackson video too with just his like sounds in it the entire time while he was dancing. It was really weird.
Wow.
But what flavor was that, Biz? It was peach what?
This is the Arnold
there you go.
Palmer peach. It's the half and half, the sweet tea and lemonade.
Right on brand.
Is it good or no?
It's actually, in my opinion, this one, and he's got Arnold Palmer. Yeah. He's got a strawberry and tea blend. That's a pretty good mix as well.
How old were you when Arizona first released that? Were you too young to remember like
This
when
one,
that
like
first came out? The
When
cans,
Arizona
like
first came out, I probably didn't really pay attention. Like I remember when there was only like 4 flavors, like
see,
so I
you're
do remember it back then.
you're
But
definitely
All my friends came up to me and
beyond
said,
that
"Did
though.
you hear the news?" And I said, "Nah, man, I don't read the news.
Well,
I don't."
back in the day, there were 99 cents a can. There was no other flavors. There was just the iced tea. All right, right,
right,
Biz?
right,
You young
right. I
kids
mean,
these
there
days.
was the
No respect,
raspberry,
James.
the lemon.
Yeah, it's just straight lemon,
There was the
iced tea.
medic one, the one that was like ginseng and
No, but that came later, man. After the 99 cents became like huge, and every bodega in New York City had those, like when they first came out, they were like the coolest thing
I
that
remember
just
when I
came
used to
out.
skate,
It
it
was like
was like the
Snapple.
thing. It was like, yeah, it was so cheap. You could just skate all day and get your Arizona, man.
Yeah, it's this giant, like oversized can.
It's the size that this guy is right here. It's the size of your face.
So I came a little out of left field here, Biz, today. So
No
normally I'm
alcohol?
drinking, normally James, I'm drinking like you, some sort of whiskey or some sort of a beer or whatever, a Pommeau, a cider. But today I went
He dabbles.
energy drink a little bit, sort of.
Ooh, I
So
almost
I
did
went
energy drink.
and I went matcha love. So it's Japanese matcha and green tea. And they have
Nice.
a sweetened one, but I went with the unsweetened one because I'm trying to watch my
Because
girlish figure here
you
in
like to torture
2020.
yourself.
Yeah.
That's why you went with
I
the
invited to the
unsweetened.
wrong show. I was like, I got the Glenfiddich ready for Infiltrate. I'm all set.
Well, don't you worry. I'll get all hyped up here in a minute with what I chose to go with. So, and then this is something else too. I got this. It's like a black tea with peach and lime and all this crazy stuff in it.
That sounds lovely.
A tea soda. So I haven't tasted yet either of these. So maybe we have a little taste test. Have you
Oh my
had
God.
your
Patrick.
Glenfiddich yet?
I've been sipping. I
Patrick,
haven't.
we've got to have a show where we both get our hands on an energy drink and then one of those like Bob Marley mellow moods. We got to drink them both at the same time and see which one is a stronger drink.
Which one wins out? Let's see what this thing I bet tastes good.
Did you open both of them and now you're drinking
I
double
did. Yeah.
fisting?
Actually, you know
Wow.
what? Speaking
my
of,
goodness.
this tea soda actually tastes like Arizona.
Does it? Wow.
That's
all right,
just
James.
a lot of sugar.
Yeah, this actually isn't that bad. It's like 80 calories or something. All right, so we don't normally spend 45 minutes on drinks, but
all right.
a good intro. Everyone had some interesting stuff there. So James, thanks for coming on the show, man. And
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Biz kind of was the connection here with the show and you. And you're a filmmaker, right?
Yeah.
So where are you?
I think so.
Filmmaker.
Where are you based at? Are you in New York still?
I'm in the epicenter right now. I'm in Brooklyn.
Ah, okay. Nice.
Live from my closet.
What part of Brooklyn are you in?
I'm in Bushwick. I'm right on the border of Ridgewood.
Okay.
Queens.
All right. Yeah, I grew up in Queens.
So there it is. I was just gonna say he's not gonna let too much time pass.
Well, it was the perfect segue, right?
It was.
Yeah, it's perfect. Where in Queens?
Jackson Heights and then Astoria.
Okay.
So like
word.
Up by like Ditmars Boulevard and
I go there all the time.
Long Island City and all that. Yeah,
like nice.
Where all that cool stuff is kind of happening now. That's where like the worst parts of Astoria and Long Island City were back when I was a kid there. So you definitely didn't want to be caught dead down there.
Really?
So you're making films. What is happening in Brooklyn? I guess from a film community thing.
What is film
now?
doing in New York City right now during coronavirus?
Yeah, like I mean, the last year obviously has been different, and I know from experience there's a big film community there too. So I don't know that if that's why you moved to the particular area you moved to or whatever to be closer to it. But like what's going on now? Do you have projects that are actually happening? Do you see anyone else like moving projects forward or anything right now?
I'm a weird guy. I'm kind of in the middle of a lot of. Like I'm in transit between a lot of spots right now. The answer to your question is that New York film is such a strange industry that it's like a bunch of cockroaches. Like how do we got to take a break, guys. We got to figure out what to do. Pandemic time. Everyone take a bench. Sure. And then film was like, all right, but like not really though, right? And so there's a lot of stuff happening. I produced a few things in coronavirus time. You kind of get used to a new normal. You got to really respect that new normal because it's very serious. at any time during that process, you can't be like, all right, I know you've been cool. I'm gonna go. Masks off on set. Like it's a small, skeleton crew. Like, no, you got to take that seriously.
Yeah.
When you're running the show, especially when you are on someone else's show, you gotta make sure that at least you're looking out for yourself, but making sure other people are, it's not a toxic environment where people are walking around, everyone's on their like 10th cigarette break, and you're like, hey, mask up, man, like come on, like
Right.
this
And
is
I see
space
too,
we're
you got the soundproof or the sound dampening blankets up in the room you're in right now. I'm assuming that's not a sound stage somewhere right now.
No, I am in my apartment.
Okay, so the reason I say that is because I'm sure that a lot of the scenarios or experiences or locations that you'd have to be on. Typically, when you're doing a film, you're in a crowd. You use like cafes or bars or something. Lots of people in them as like backdrops. So have you found a lot of stuff is like moved into people's apartments and indoors, and people kind of trying to do things siloed by themselves versus like
I mean, it's much more irregular. It's kind of how things have been. It's just with different protocols. Certain productions like to run on smaller crew sizes, which can be problematic. With regular crew sizes, it's just like you need to be tested before you come on set. We're going to have testing on set regularly. As much as you can on a set, try to social distance, all that stuff, which is kind of like out the window a little bit, but at least everyone's doing their best.
Have you cheated a kiss scene yet, where someone has that they're 6 feet away from each other, but it
just
look like
just over the shoulder coverage,
cut the frame so that it's like them, kissing.
I'm sure it's happens, but I not on any of the sets I've been on for sure. I think the way talent tends to work, the cast tends to be, it's very like, okay, they're clean. We know they're clean. No one go near them unless they've been tested like 5 times. So then they're kind of like a weird nucleus of the like regular world again. Because
is there a waiting period from the time they test until like typically people feel comfortable? Because I know there's like an incubation period, right? So there's like 14 days where potentially. I don't wonder. Do you know this? Because I don't know this. Do you test positive even if you're in the like incubation stage?
You would, from what my understanding.
Yeah.
If you're dormant and you've got the virus, like the virus is traceable almost immediately on a test if you've got it in your body. It's just a matter of if you'll get sick and if you'll actually continue to be asymptomatic for very long.
And everyone listening to this, don't pay any attention to any of the things that we say, because we're definitely not looking any of this up for verifiable information. But I was just wondering, I've heard
these are straight facts.
Yeah,
I've heard medical professionals' mouths themselves
here and there about like how people are dealing with it, like the temperature thing. Okay, some people may not have a temperature. What is that really doing? Are you really even? Is it preventing anything at all? I guess if people do have a fever, keeping people without fevers out is smart, but whether or not it actually does anything, I don't know.
It's been different on every show that I've been on. All of them kind of have a logic of their own. Like, this makes sense for this makes sense for this. We're not union, but we are SAG-AFTRA union. So like the way we handle COVID on set for actors versus just in general safety, in general on set. But AD's running around like, hey, you have no reason to keep your mask off. Get that back on or you're off set. And you're kind of done like that. Like, there's no real strike system. It's like, you need to take this seriously. That's the new normal we're in. Exterior shoots, it's a little bit more lax because it's open air, but you still need to social distance by quite a lot. We just take it seriously and be careful. And I've been on set where positives have come up and they've been handled in very different ways. But the crew's safety has always been the priority, and that fallout has been handled excellently, and everyone's been fine.
So what you said you're a filmmaker, right? Do you have a specific spot? Because I usually end up getting to this biz for some reason at the end of the show. But okay, do you have a website? Do you have some place someone could go if they're looking for some recent projects, things like that? Just I want to get it out there in the beginning, and send me the link too, so that maybe I'll look it up somewhere, and we'll post it when we post the show. But
so my independent work is called Caramel Hippo Studios, and those are productions that I helm with clients or that I produce myself. Caramel, like the candy, Caramel, Hippo, as in the hippopotamus, HIPPO, and studios,
all one.
STIOS.
The first and second part are separate words, right? So there's a space in between. If someone's
Yeah.
Googling it, essentially, but
yes, 3 words. Kamloopa Studios, KamloopaStudios.com.
Excellent.
I'm glad that if you were to Google it, there are 0 other studios out there in the world. It's like that's this guy.
Yeah, that's pretty smart though, because I'll be honest, I've looked for a bunch of domains for a bunch of different things that I've done, and you always come across like, oh damn it, someone
finding names are tough.
You know?
But so yeah, you can find my work on my website there. I make short films. I do music video work. Dabbling in commercial. Kind of a weird bridge from like Instagram. But like that's what I do as a producer. I do a lot of writing. That's the coronavirus answer. We can cut straight to that. It's been a really heavy writing year for me.
Have you seen like ultra shorts getting kind of produced at a professional level, like for things like Instagram and like I'm almost surprised I haven't come across it where, you know, maybe like the whole Instagram account is like a story, you know, little videos or pictures that lead you along a kind of a journey. Are you starting to see anyone like play around with social media or
for sure
some of this stuff in a different way?
Instagram and social media has been a real asset to a lot of creatives for a while. I think this is a weird example, but I think even the pilot episode of Rick and Morty for a while was released on Instagram, and it was like in those minute clips, and you could just scroll and be like, oh, here, that was fun. It held my attention the whole time. Like, oh, there you go. Releasing like a music video, that's like, oh, what's the aspect ratio designed specifically for Instagram stories? Like keeping that in mind when you're shooting it on set. Like that's a really interesting thing. But
do you also do like cutting it up for? Because Instagram too, just on their actual posts, you have a time limit or whatever. Do you do all that in house? Like, what is your? I know you say you're a filmmaker, but are you producing, directing, and editing and doing kind of a lot of that at some instances? Excuse me, on your own, or is it a team of people you work with, or does it depend on the project?
It varies project to project. For the most part, I'm producer, director, editor for the client work for like music video stuff. I pitch them a treatment. I'm on set directing it. I'm working with them directly because they're on camera or they're behind camera watching narrative stuff come to life. And then at the very least, I'm pretty strict about I want a rough cut. I want you to know what I was trying to go for with what we were doing on set, so you see that. And then there's a discussion with my most recent video I did with Mike Tribino. He's a very skilled editor. He's a filmmaker himself, and so that was actually that was the only time I've had that kind of relationship, actually. But that was really, really positive. And so the two of us were kind of sharing Premiere files and here's what I did. What did you think of this? And back to back. And I thought that was going to be kind of a clusterfuck. And I was like, I'm not going to like this at all. And then he was excellent. And it really paid off well.
Is it mostly like live? How do I put it? Like live action stuff? Do you do any animation or get into those worlds at all?
Not yet. Is the answer. I took like animation courses when I went to school. I am friends with a lot of animators. I've had animation tie into things I've done. I've done like mixed media stuff before, but I've never produced like a cartoon or a cartoon music video.
Yeah.
I am currently, though this is like not a strict production. This is more like in our own time. It's a project, passion project happening on its own. I'm producing something with a friend out in LA. Very slowly. That's stop motion. So I'm in that world, but like not professionally. I stay very strictly live action. Yeah,
very barely. You could say dabble.
Let me ask you a quick question too. Behind you there is a nice gold something or other.
I was wondering if that was going to come up. Like, that's going to sneak by.
Yeah, what do you got back there? Is that a jacket? Is that a
It's a jacket which I saw online, and I said, "Why would I not buy this?"
Holy light reflection!
And then I know, and then and then everything shut down, and no one is in the club, and I have no reason to wear it ever. But it's ready for when things open again, and I hit the club. I'll be super sad.
So, what got you into like? Because I'm guessing at some point you didn't start out like, all right, I'm making money off of, I'm making films and using my my talent with regards to editing, etc. Were you into film like when you were young? Like, was that something that you grew up kind of like super into, or what got you?
It's yeah. I was so I'm originally from the city, and there was I guess there's some weird wisdom of strangers or something, but my mother and father would push me around in the stroller, and strangers would want to talk about my hair, because I had bright red hair straight out of the womb, like, and so people were like, you got to put this baby in commercials. And so I actually began my career as a child actor when I was in the city as a kid.
Nice. Now, when you
And
say the city,
I'm in New York City. I'm originally from Manhattan, the city.
So that's
you're on planet Earth. You say the city. You mean New York City?
Right.
We've got a bunch of listeners, so not only from here, but like out in LA and Europe, etc. So I say that I've caught myself since I moved to Rochester saying the city a bunch of times and getting
for sure. No,
like, oh, downtown Rochester, where?
Yeah, no, that's like, oh, very fair.
That's right. If you're from New York, then the city is New York City. But
if you're from New York City and you say the city, you mean Manhattan.
Yeah,
because if you're from Brooklyn, you're like, oh, I go up to Queens. Oh, we're going to the city later, though.
Yeah.
So yes, I apologize. I originally from Manhattan. Actually, originally from Manhattan.
Isn't that tough to say? Doesn't that sound gross to say it?
A little bit. Yeah, you're very right. Manhattan.
I'm sorry. So okay, so you were being put into commercials when you're a young.
Yeah, I was in bit parts that were like for features and commercials and soap operas and TV and
how did you? But did your parents ever explain to you like how they got you into that? Like how that's not necessarily.
I don't think I actually know the beginning avenue of like getting me an agent, but I had a child agent, a casting agent. Because
you got to imagine like a lot of babies are cute, right? So a bunch of people.
Yeah, there's apparently there's like a very specific job for that. There's like classifications of age where you get put on camera for certain things, and there's different unions that represent the babies.
Yeah, but not everyone's parents.
I did not know that.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put you into, get you an actual agent and do this and that with it, and actually take it from like, hey, your baby is cute, it should be in commercials, to actually doing the
yeah. My parents have artistic backgrounds.
Gotcha.
They're very. I'm very lucky to have very supportive parents, but they are hilariously. They're very talented in many fields and in many different facets of expression, and so they were kind of always like, we're never going to tell our kid no to this thing, but we're just going to really hope he naturally finds his way into the medical profession or the sciences or into being a lawyer or something, that we could just relax about. But instead I was like, I like acting, but that was like working for a little while as a kid, so they were like, all right, we're not mad. And then it was a kind of a game for me. I really liked acting, but I'd started to get into stage a little bit right when I was like 11, and then it just became more and more of like a. Also, in general, the tweens are like a terrible. Like, you was talking about, finding work in the winter in the film industry is like, it's hard. Like, trying to find work when you are like age 10 to like 13 and you're a young boy is like very difficult, because it's like you just don't look like anything. You're not a child, but you're also not a teenager. Like, we can't cast you unless you're like just right or built a certain way, and so it gets harder. And that's fine. It's just like it was I would like get a couple commercials or a couple gigs a year, and it would pay for like everything for the year. And I was getting like a lot less around that age, and 9/11 and stuff, and so we moved out of the city.
New York City on September 11th.
I was.
Where were you? Were you
in kindergarten? But but I was there.
Young guy.
Whoops. But I was there, and so that it was more of like a family thing and less of my personal experience. Unfortunately, I can't really reflect on my time when that happened.
Where were you at the time? Do you know? Like where? Like
I was literally in class. I was literally in kindergarten, and parents were pulling kids out of class, and my dad kind of hovered around the school.
Uptown, downtown.
We were in the Upper West Side. We had this apartment from my grandfather originally, and so I had that fortune.
So you spent from your 10-year-old birthday till your 14th birthday unemployed.
Yeah. It was a hard tween period in my life. I was walking around the street and people were like, "I know you."
Yeah, the VH1 behind the music. You had those years where you were just in an alley somewhere at 11 years old.
Did people really stop you on the street and do
no,
that?
No.
I was gonna say, wow,
that's the Will Smith tax fraud thing where he was like had to ride the bus, but they were like, "You're Will Smith," and he was like,
So then, when did that kind of cease to be the case? Did you continue down the acting route, or were you because at some point you had to have gotten interested in the backing, the back part of it, the back of the house where you're making.
Yeah.
So how did that transition happen from?
Well, I guess the tangent I accidentally ended up on was that's kind of, it just became part of my brain, was like being on set. It was surrounding me. I was just part of the storytelling. And for me, storytelling is the heart of all of it. So I could cite my acting background as like, oh, that's how I got into film, but I could also just cite comic books, like watching storyboards progress into a narrative instead of just books. I would read a lot. I watched a lot of movies. My parents were very eclectic with what they would show me. Like a lot of kids would be like, I've seen, Terminator and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's not I'm not going to group those two together. Forget that. But my parents would show me like In the Heat of the Night and Dr. Zhivago. And I was like, that was such a great shot where the sunflowers are dripping their petals, and every like other seventh grader would be like, do you need to fucking leave, dude? And I'm like, all right, whoops. So I mean, my parents really just like marinated me in a lot of cinema, and I started making short films as like I started making like Monty Python sketches with my friends in Vermont, because I moved to Vermont after 9/11. That was that point, is that we moved the hell away from the city, and now I tried to get the hell back.
Well, what's funny about that too is, okay, they already attacked the two tallest buildings. Like the likelihood of that being something else that happens again there is probably it's even more unlikely now after it's happened for something like that big to happen.
That is a karmically shitty thing to say.
But I'm just saying, like,
like, oh yeah, it would never happen, like, and then it's happening now.
I'm saying, like, you've already broken your arm in a particular place, right?
Right.
The likelihood of you breaking in that exact same place again is pretty unlikely.
Yeah. Hey man,
I was there. I was there for September 11th too. So just so you know, I'm born and bred for anyone listening here that they're going to get angry and send us angry emails. Which, by the way, you can send emails.
How old were you when that happened?
Hold on, let's say the email address one more time, Biz. So for emails again, if you want to send in angry emails and yell at me for my comments, or Biz, or even James. James likes to be yelled at. We'll forward him to him. It's infiltrateradiopodcast@gmail.com if you want to send us any questions, comments, etc. So I'm sure we'll get something for that, Biz. So you made the transition. So you were into like indie films and watching avant-garde movies in the basement somewhere, I'm guessing. Some right, full of hookahs and artwork on the wall, and then and then you made the jump from being an actor to then kind of wanting to get into making it. So you were making like Monty Python style stuff just at home with like, what kind of equipment did you have? Digital?
God, I had a like a flip camcorder. Remember those like home video, like you could like they were like a thing you'd hold in your fist like this, and
that's what everyone started with.
Oh my God, I might actually have it in my closet somewhere. Yeah, I'm not gonna pull it out now, but it's no, actually, fuck, I have it right here. Just kidding. I'm going to. Patrick wants to avoid the question of how old he was when.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't. I can't even believe he sidestepped it.
I'm
right, just kidding.
I
am gonna
opportune moment.
Pull it out.
I gave you the opportune moment. I asked you how old were you when 9/11 happened.
I was 21, Biz. I was 21.
Good Lord.
What does that mean?
He knows what it means.
So you were filming the stuff on the
on little camcorder type.
Did you actually edit it afterwards?
Actually, it was a hilarious like child brain. Like coverage wasn't a thing. It wasn't an edited thing. It was like, oh, get this shot, finish your line. Okay, get this shot. Okay, back to you. And it was like a new take every time because I didn't know better.
Right.
Finally, I got my own computer because I had a camera before I had my own computer as a kid. It was real backwards. I don't know. We weren't wealthy, and and so I finally started to get into editing. I was using Windows Movie Maker, and if I did like too many cuts, it would just like crash. Which is like,
that was terrible.
What? And so got into Final Cut when I went to school in high school because there was a cinema class and I used Final Cut and it blew my mind. And now in retrospect, I can't. It's fine. I'm not gonna. Haters want to come at me. They can, but like I
Again,
can't touch Final Cut now.
radiopodcast@gmail.com.
All the Final Cut fans that are listening to this podcast will be like, that son of a bitch.
So what do you use now?
I use Premiere, which I think is a really strong editing software. Adobe is evil, and you can quote me on that, but Premiere is pretty good. I have access to people who can help teach me Avid, which is like the industry standard editing software and is like super legit. And I'm not gonna knock that, but it's one of those things where like in film there are little things like a clothespin, like you would hang your laundry with a clothespin. You also use to like clip like gels onto lights, and like you use it for a million things. In film, you might call them a bullet or a C47 or something else, depending on where you work. That only exists because there are thresholds which they want people to not like to integrate into film. They're just little terms to help people not immediately just step in like, hand me that clothespin. Like, I know what that is. Like, give me that bullet. And you're like, I'm out of my depth. So, and that's, that's in all sorts of industries. That's not just in film, but that's, that kind of thing exists also in editing. And I feel like Avid, it's just its own world, and it wants to be its own world. And I have not been shown that world. And I have friends who have offered to teach me that world. And that's like I'm not strictly an editor, so I haven't prioritized that, but I make my way with Premiere, and I'm pretty good at Premiere, so I'm very fast with Premiere, so I'm happy to stay there.
It's an interesting thing that you said though about the nomenclature behind stuff is meant to kind of put a virtual like wall so that people aren't just getting into the complexities of it. But it's almost like, why would you want to necessarily do that? I see that like with engineers too. Like if you get a bunch of engineers that start a company, just all the like documentation, everything is so complicated and over like there's nothing easy to use about it, but it's powerful, obviously. And it can do all this cool stuff, but only like 3 people know how to.
I think it's all part of the push to like, well, if anyone can do it, then what value am I? It's like that level of insecurity that people integrate into a company and into an industry, really.
Well, I think what's great about like the entertainment industry and the arts and that sort of thing, even food, is that at this point in time, especially like creatives that make like music and film and anything that digital stuff has kind of gotten itself into, like it opens it up to this world where it's going to, and probably already has, like commoditized stuff like film and brought down the price of music, etc. But what's interesting about it, whenever you have that kind of like shake up happen at the other side of it, there always ends up being people that innovate and conquer that new version of whatever the industry is. I think that this is unique. I think it's good that that we get rid of that stuff and have stuff like Final Cut. That's kind of simpler to use. They made it very close to
iMovie.
To iMovie. So that jump, I think, could happen easier, which I think that's on Apple's part. I think that's a good thing to do. Get more of the people that like are kind of just entry level to look at that and be like, oh wait, this looks pretty much the same, but it's got all these other cool little things I can do.
Right.
I think that's a smart way to approach it, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, you're not wrong at all.
What do you like about Premiere versus Final Cut? We're talking about video editing software.
Gonna really hone in on that audience real quick.
We've brought ourselves down to 1 listener at this point.
This is what I've been waiting for.
42 episodes. Here we are.
So Derek, this one's for you. Thanks for listening. I like Premiere because I guess I can't even.
Do you find it more?
So like, can't even put it into words.
When you drive 2 different cars and they're both cars and they both have the same features, but one feels a different way. There are different mechanics in Premiere that at this point it becomes such a shorthand for me that it feels like I'm getting behind the car, which I feel comfortable in, and I can I just know my way around, and I can. And with Final Cut, it's a lot more cutesy. The interface is a lot more drag and drop. Look at our fun effects, and it's less of like okay, but when I want to export, like how many codecs do I have available to me? That's just not here. It's a much more simplified thing. And when you don't, it feels like it's much more like general release, and so there's a lot less control over the specifics, and that can complicate an interface. But Premiere is still very slick, and so I don't feel like I lose grip on what I'm trying to do, while also having a very simple time finding my way around the interface.
I gotcha. So let's get back to a little bit more of the ethereal part of like what you do, because I find creative people and artists and entrepreneurs like very interesting as in terms of like how their brains work versus someone that's perfectly happy doing a kind of a 9 to 5, let's say, desk job or a service industry job, because there's people that are perfectly happy doing that and they don't have any desire, and they go to concerts, have no desire to be up on stage, go to a movie, don't have no desire to make a movie, things like that.
I wonder what that's like, honestly. I really have never.
I'd love to have a week or two of feeling like that. So I could take a break, Biz.
Heard.
So you make films now. Are they generally your scripts, or are they scripts that someone has brought to you, or ideas that have been brought to you? Obviously you're doing some stuff for hire too, where you're doing music videos and things like that. Like when it's a passion project of yours, let's say, and you get let's say you get a script, right? Well, first of all, do you get scripts from other people? Do you actually write scripts?
Funnily enough, the last short I finished was actually someone else's script. And he was a buddy of mine, and he wanted me to direct it. So that does happen. It's not actually very often. Normally it is my own, but I was lucky enough for that.
And in that regard, that's kind of what I'm more interested in too. Like when you produce something that's, your own writing, I guess even the writing, you have like a vision of what it is in your head. So when you go to put it into film form, obviously the skills and the limitations of film versus like what's in your head, right? So you'll have to kind of adjust in that manner and then develop your own vision of what you think the outcome of the film, let's say, would be. And with doing film, you always need other people. Like a lot of films, it would be almost impossible to do without at least 3 or 4 people. Even
it's a team medium. You cannot do it alone.
Except for like the news people now can do it with like one camera in front of hangs there. But that's not making like a
filmmaking.
So one, that vision that comes about in your head is something that drives you to then want to output that for some reason, right? And especially if you've written it, that's come out of basically thin air, that idea for that story or whatever you're trying to put together. I guess kind of a 2-part thing is, have you always had that, where you kind of you visualize some idea of something, like you said, like in a comic book, you're reading a comic book. Are you like in your head visualizing this world? And it happens more when you're reading, just because you don't have actual visualization.
Right.
So one, has that always been the case, or do you even do that when you're putting together a film, or is it more about the story and the technical aspects? And then 2, if you're visualizing it and you have a team together with you, like how do you go about communicating that to the individuals that you're working with, so that you can whatever that vision is actually appear on what the end product is?
That's a fantastic and super heavy question. No, that's really great. That's what I'm all about. I mean, I love that. So I guess for the first part of the question, when you're reading a book, and I have like memories of being a kid, because unfortunately a lot of the reading I did was more when I was young. I do love to read, but I do a lot more of it in my memory than I do right now, because I'm so busy with other stuff. But when you're reading a really great book, and I have memories as a child walking away from a book, I had to use the bathroom, or someone started talking to me, and I go back to the book, and my recollection was I just reading a book, or wasn't I watching TV? As like a little kid, the memory was that I was barely reading, I was just watching something happen. Interpreting a piece of writing and having visuals is natural to us. That is a part of the human psychology, to interpret information and make it visual in our heads. Not everyone is the same. Not everyone is a visual learner, but when you're given something visual, you accept it. It is a universal thing to accept visuals pretty simply. And so for me, the art of filmmaking is just navigating the interpretation of all of that. And that's why I love specifically directing, and it feels very esoteric and pretentious to be like, I am a director, I love directing. But directing is the art of interpreting and managing that vision into other people's minds so that it comes out the way you thought you saw it in your head, which is so esoteric and so bizarre that trying to nail it is an art because it's so particular. So when I'm writing something and it's my own vision, I have a goal, or I'm constructing a goal, and I want it to be emotional. I want it to be a specific visual. And as I'm writing it, I might, in my brain, naturally come to some sort of coverage, some sort of film coverage where I know how I'm going to shoot it. I'm going to need 4 shots for this scene. It's a 2-page scene. It has a lot going on, but I only need these 4 shots. I know that for a fact. And then I start talking to someone who might know better than me, and I interpret what they have to say. And my goal is not to tell them what I think is better. My goal is to make them feel what I want the scene to do. And then we start to land in the center. And when I start to say, I think I only need these 4 shots, they go, no, you still need 5 shots, but here's what that 4th one's going to do. And I go, that's exactly right. And you let other people in to that, so that in the end, you are constructing and orchestrating that vision so that it's all harmonious. It's in synergy.
So one thing to kind of clarify, and then we can get even deeper into this, but like, sure. So the thought process behind when you're actually writing something, you're writing for it to be on film, kind of purposefully, right? And I think that a lot of people that are not in the film industry, or haven't read scripts and things like that, tend to think of it as like, oh, you just write a story, like you're writing a book or you're writing a short story, and that translates immediately to, you just make a movie out of it. Right. And I find that I write in a similar way when I write even a book. I'm writing in the mindset of a movie to like create in someone else's head, I guess. That I want, that I would, if I was making a movie, present to them. So have you ever like adapted a book or a short story to film? Like, have you ever done that just off the,
I actually have 2 projects that are the result of what some sort of literature. I am currently developing a feature based off of a novel my father published, which is really interesting to work with that kind of relationship. Be like, it's my dad, but also it's like, there's the piece of writing and how do we interpret that. And I also, a kind of a baby of mine has been this adaptation of Peter Pan in like this completely non-fantasy kind of like postmodern setting. It was not something I set out to say, I want to do this kind of movie, but then I made a short film version of it when I was in film school, and now I'm working on this feature adaptation that's like, did I set out to make a queer love story in like weird upstate New York?
Right.
No, I didn't. But this is something I really have fallen in love with. Yeah, here we are. And is very, very important to me now. Like, these characters are now kind of like a part of my heart, and that's all been from interpreting other texts. So that's kind of its own animal. I kind of, even with my father's work, which is like super close to me, I like to be like, I've straight up gone up to my dad and say like, hey, so like, I liked your book a lot, but like, here's what I think doesn't work about it, and here's where I think as a film you need this to make more sense to an audience,
right?
That's in a visual setting, and here's why.
And I think
I could get into specifics if you want.
Come true as a parent. Like, honestly, that'd be so cool if my kid came up to me like that one time.
Yeah, and I think that too, like that's, people get upset when books get adapted to
always.
They don't necessarily always get that. Yeah, it's a whole different medium. Like, you're presenting the visuals versus almost in your mind. Like if someone's reading a piece of literature with just and there's just words there, no pictures, your mind can do things that film can't do.
Exactly.
Some gymnastics that just is not possible to necessarily, and you can leave some stuff vague in your mind that you can't leave vague, unfortunately, on a screen when you're presenting the actual story to them. I mean, there are other things
Well,
that are conveyed in it, but what I'm saying is like some stuff just can't be translated, word for word. Let's say.
I think it's also like people say, like as far as like time and stuff like that. You know what I mean? There's just so many character arcs that would need to be developed if you put every single storyline into, you know what I mean, practice on the screen. You know what I mean?
So, and then back to kind of your representation or getting other people to kind of go along with your vision and actually have it come out somewhat like the vision that was in your head, because obviously it always alters. But like,
Sure.
What's the process there for getting that across? Do you storyboard? Because I found I can't. I don't know, I have trouble doing that where I'm actually specifically spelling out, here's the scene, here's the location. I have all of that kind of prepped. The preparation part is where really I fall apart. James, I do zero preparation and just wing it every single time I put anything together. No, but obviously you're going to make some changes when you get there. But do you prepare like that where you have it kind of already set what you're going to do, and yes, some stuff comes up when you're actually out filming that you have to change, but for the most part you knew what you're going into, or is it in your head and then you get there and you try and get everyone to kind of go along with it?
So the part of the art of directing is that when you're on set, it seems like the director's craft only exists with the actors, because you're working with actors on set and what they're doing to achieve a performance that you want for them. It's the actor's medium. It's now the storytelling is with them. That's because all of the other communication had to have happened in prep, because it's about creating the moment, and that's a lot of preparation, which isn't needed for like, okay, here's that emotional, that's the thing we have to create right now, versus everything else is like, okay, we're going to structure it. There's a lot more technical things that go into this. Here's how we need to bring things to set that we needed to know months in advance. So yeah, that communication is all part of prep. I think so. Like that's another dense question, which I love. I don't storyboard because no one can ever understand what I'm scribbling. But
So
I
can't quit your day job and become a
no. I do love to draw, but it doesn't. But I need to like it's time consuming and it doesn't work. Yeah. So I what I do is I read a scene, and even if I've written it, I kind of like from scratch say, okay, interpret this. What's needed here? And I have written scenes that are dialogue, and then something happens that's very simple, like someone picks something up and moves to the door. That kind of coverage in my brain, I'm like, okay, so I need aughts wide, over the shoulder wide, and then maybe something interesting like a special or an insert on what they're picking up in some, depending on what's happening in the script and the context, there's a thematic influence too, but we want to shoot it from maybe over here. And I'll bring that to a cinematographer and they'll say, yes, but this is a story that's about isolation. So yes, we're going to do it over the shoulder, but we're going to frame them, both of them, all the way to the left and then all the way to the right. We want huge space on this frame, and how a cinematographer interprets it is going to be their own philosophy, and that conversation goes there. So in the end, that discussion has been had. I trust that they're bringing their own homework. When I give a script to an actor, I know they're doing their homework. A good actor is doing their own homework, so they come to set prepared. So what am I doing? Why am I there if they've done their homework? I'm trusting them to bring their own intuition and their own homework to life in a way that we have just prepped, which is why rehearsal is essential. That's why prep is essential. So with the cinematographer, we've had this discussion. Isolation, they've got to be all the way to the left. No, this is not a story about isolation. You read the script. What? No, it's not about isolation at all. It's about struggling for connection. So they need to be on top of one another, because you want to see how uncomfortable the actors are going to be expressing this weird, out of touch connection, even though they seem to be connecting. And we want to make the audience uncomfortable through that, third party struggle. and they'd be like, okay, that doesn't work either. Let's do something else. Let's not do over the shoulder. And I'm like, okay. And we have a whole other conversation there. And that's part of what's really fun for me, because you hear a story that you've poured your heart into from a whole other perspective, which is super valid. And my goal personally is to not be a jerk about it. Like you wanna get into it and no, you don't understand my vision. No. The way I see it's the way I see it. You got to be firm. If someone's not understanding it right, you got to communicate that in a way which is constructive. But everyone has great ideas and really cares a lot about their perspectives. So it's really important to listen to them and put that into what you orchestrate into the final product, which is where, yes, it was my vision, but it was a whole team.
Yeah, and I think that's important. We've talked a lot with entrepreneurs about like their teams. How do you inspire like your teams to go forward towards a particular vision? Like how does that communication happen? Dave Williams was on. We talked about that biz, right? I think every kind of business owner and even a band, the band is the same thing. Typically, there's someone doing this or that, and
and the boxer and the singer, like everyone that we talk to is on the same page.
Boxing, really,
and I think
the team of people that support you is literally like the make or break. It seems like for most people that pursue any sort of wildly successful and wildly like high risk sort of situations where you kind of put your all into it, and if it fails, well, I might be sleeping on the sidewalk in front of your house tomorrow night. Like,
yeah. So we've had a boxer, Willie L. Mongoose Monroe Jr. on, who's the world champ for a while, and we've had like what's her name, Rachel Barnett, who's what is she?
Barnhart.
Oh, Barnhart, that's right. But a whole bunch of people from different professions, different like things. But I think the overarching theme is, I mean, there's a few of them, but one of them is that the ability to communicate with the people around you end up making that thing so much better in the end. Like I've always said, like I'll go out and I'll play solo, but when I'm playing with a band and that band is communicating properly with each other and you have like some sort of a language with each other, it's always significantly better, which is why like bands back in the day, like you had some solo artists that were put out, with pop music behind them or whatever it was, or just stage bands or whatever. But those big bands were relatively rare, because to have like 5 people in a band all communicating with each other and making
a lot of synergy.
Music, one is super difficult to do, but two, when that happens, it's better than the outcome of each one of them individually, which is why when you see people go out on like solo careers in a band, right? They're like, I could do it solo, and then they go out and it's like, yeah, that's shit what they're making there. But when it comes together,
it's a different animal. You know what I mean? It's something different to try to
it almost like it gives some like dynamics, which is almost forced in film, because you have so many people involved in a particular project when you're bringing it to fruition. And I think what you said was super important too. Whoever's kind of leading that, if you're the director, you're the producer, you're whoever, or you're even the writer, the person that wrote it, if you're kind of directing the project and you don't allow those other people's version of the vision or whatever to kind of come in and seep into the end product, I think it'll be less than without that input, like just coming in there as a dictator. Do you have like tricks and tips that you use like when you're communicating with people, like if someone's been being difficult, or there's like something someone is not getting that kind of helps you overcome that sort of stuff?
Oh man, you want me to reveal all my secrets? I think
well, help everyone, I think.
I'm a really hokey, campy dude. It might seem like the industry will chew me up and throw me away, but I really, it has paid off pretty well for me so far, that my only trick is just to be articulate and sincere with what I'm thinking. If something's not working, it's not to not tell them that, but to be, I don't know. It's bad. Do it again. Like to do that prep work, so that when the moment arises, you know how to articulate what isn't working, so that you can address it in a completely honest way, in an amiable way, so that the conversation is a constructive one and a happy one.
Let me ask you this: so as a director, do you have any suggestions to help any actors or people on set that might work with a director, that would make the director's life easier, I guess? Do you have any?
Oh
like,
my
hey,
God.
don't come in and do this. Like, obviously prep, right? Before you come in and know your lines, etc.
Yeah,
But,
I guess it's just trust the director, which is very hard to do. I mean, from as an actor and as a director, it kind of comes once you're on the project, when you're there and you're on set and you're listening to the director, you don't want to be in a position where you're like, but I look kind of stupid doing this, don't I? Like, I don't feel comfortable. If that's what's happening and you like the director and it's like super copacetic, but you're just like, this feels wrong, say something. Just be, I don't feel comfortable doing this. Okay, why? What's not working? And then now you're having a conversation and you're not stalling and you're not getting a bunch of takes that are garbage, you know,
Yeah.
and hopefully this director doesn't know what they're doing is something you figure out when you see the casting call or you have the audition and you have every power to be like, hey, you got the part. I actually already got booked. It really great getting to know you. I really hope we can make something work in the future, but not this one. Sorry. Walk away. Like, I think I don't want an actor to do anything specific for me. I think I want them to just be trusting because I'm going to put in so much work because I need them to be super vulnerable and I'm going to respect that. But I need them to be vulnerable. I need them to trust that things might feel silly or stupid. The product is going to pay off. And I haven't had I don't think I have had an actor. I mean, tell me, maybe they're keeping it a secret, but I haven't had any collaborators be like, yeah, man, I don't know what was happening on set, and then I saw the film, and I'm like, why was that even happening? Like, that didn't work at all. Like, it pays off.
I'm completely astounded. All the times I pressed you about how many times I needed to be slapped silly.
I think that paid off excellently.
Oh my God, it did so good. The sound effect alone that made it to the final cut was.
Can I say like what was achieved from that moment on set? So briefly for context, there's a scene which Biz was in the film of mine where he's playing the
strung out
family man, but he's a junkie, and there's a drug dealer coming to collect from him because he's behind on his payments, and we've never met this character before, and we just come in, and the film is flawed as hell, but this is one of the strongest scenes that anyone who's seen has been like, yeah, it's problematic movie, not perfect student film for sure, you know, because it's a few years back now, and but that scene really stayed with me. Like, cool. And on set, this dealer comes up and is just pressing him like, I'm not, you know, I'm not playing around anymore, give me the money. And I think that the conversation was just like, yeah, just like keep him calm, like make sure that this dealer understands you're going to do what he says and everything's cool, your kid's right here, like keep things comfortable. And he's not gonna play that game, he's gonna go hard. And so we did so many takes where that actor came up and just was slapping you, was just hitting you. And I kept saying like, you know, like it looks good, but like we can definitely, it can look good and not be so hard. Are you okay? And you're like, I'm ready. I'm good. I'm fine. Just hit me harder. It's fine. And I was like, all right, dude, sure. Cool.
Never did I say to hit me harder. I remember that one of the like maybe like third or fourth to last takes, he slapped me so hard that it like cracked my neck. Like he was getting a lot of sick enjoyment out of it.
Even when you weren't rolling,
but then
he's like, let's rehearse, get over here.
In the final cut, he kept in between takes, he was hugging you. He
was like, I'm so sorry. I'm
very
so
sweet
sorry.
Actor.
He is.
But the final cut, the take which worked and was really made the scene work was, it's a take where he didn't hit him.
Right.
It's a take where he kept faking him out. He was like, I'm gonna hit you. Come on, do what I say, or I'm gonna hit you.
I was so traumatized at that point that the reaction is so authentic.
It worked. And that was the first time I'd ever actually met you, man. That was I had never met you before we shot that scene because I needed.
Can I get a loop of that sent to me? Maybe in a GIF.
You can play that every time you need it.
Yeah, we'll just.
I wish I was made into a GIF. I hope someone hears.
We can GIF it.
Makes that.
We can GIF it.
Do it up. Yeah, but that was actually my very first technically paid, because you paid me for it. My first paid acting.
Really?
Thing. Yeah, and not only that,
I feel all warm and fuzzy now.
that led that and then 2 or 3 other gigs that were very similar to yours because they were with the same school. I did a couple projects, and literally your project to the couple that I did leading up to January,
Mhm.
I made so many connections and so much success off of the few people that I actually connected with and let those relationships branch out, that it was it's one of the things I brought up a lot whenever people ask, like, you know, how I got started and everything. I always tell people, like, really the local schools, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just branching out with the right people. Like, you're gonna run into people that are just spinning in circles. Like, steer clear of them. Find you a James Abrams
Yeah.
because
And going back to
they
your question,
exist.
Pat,
Yeah.
actually, not maybe not for a director, but what I would recommend to actors starting out is to do what business saying is find film schools, because the
Yeah.
stakes are so low. And if it's a bad movie and you look like an idiot, no one's gonna see that film. Like it's
Until
super super low.
you
Right.
blow up, like
Yeah,
someone
until
will
you end
find
up
it.
on a podcast, and then that
I've
one clip
Fun.
takes it viral.
I've
But
had I've had a couple of those mild things happen. I was working recently on
mhm.
a feature, and I showed someone my ID, and I don't have it on me, but my ID picture, I got this wicked beard, like
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
mustache,
I
but
forgot you had that big head.
there's like a part between the beard and the mustache that is
Uh-huh.
just full fledged Amish beard, and
Uh-huh.
of course I'm not wearing a hat, so I'm bald as shit.
Okay.
And I show someone this, and a guy across the room starts fidgeting on his phone for a minute. He's like, "Hey, Biz, is this you?" And he pulls up a screenshot of a short film that I was in, where I play like
Mhm.
this therapist, and I don't wear a hat, and I got this wicked beard. He's like,
Uh-huh.
I was in the class of the guy that made this film." Like, it was,
Oh, that's too funny.
yeah,
Who was that? Can you say on the air?
yeah,
Can you
oh
say who
yeah,
that
for sure,
was?
for sure. It was a film called Disconnected. It was made by a dude named Yassine. It was for, I think, a Brockport communications class,
Just
and
kidding. I was like,
it
do I
started to
know
go.
this? I
No,
don't.
no, 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 no,
Yeah, I
not at
think
all.
the reason you're saying that too, right, is because I think in everything, networking is probably one of the most important things to do, is to like have,
You're here.
branch out your,
Oh yeah,
your network, because the film schools, a lot of those people are going there because they're super into it, and obviously wanting to dedicate their entire college
Mhm.
career to coming out as a filmmaker, right?
let's go $250,000 into debt to
And
get a
so,
degree.
right. So there's a likelihood that that they're going to pursue that,
No,
and a
too
few of those
much.
people would go on to actually. So there's a bunch of people that I've just made friends with, and there too, that have production companies and things like that too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's great advice for anyone to, even like in the music business or whatever the business is. I mean, get in at a low a
Well,
low
and
part, and eventually people move on and branch out, and the power of many is greater than the power of one, let's say,
well,
in more
you
ways
also
than one.
kind of get the experience, like you guys talked about earlier in the episode. The C-47 and the 10-2 and the all of the different terminology. You learn a good portion of that dicking around with 21-year-olds that just say the shit just to say it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
all that terminology you can pick up on the student film sets, and
Mhm.
you know what I mean. Some student films, they want a good product, and they feel
Oh
like,
yeah.
I have to pay someone to do that, and it's not always unpaid. So I mean, you're not going to make your living off of student films, but you know what I mean. When certain people approach you and they see that you've got some natural skill or some taught skills that they could use, a lot of times they're willing to pay you. I mean, this is a freelance market. It's not always I get the same pay and this is what I'm paid or else. You know what I mean? You got to
Yeah.
be willing to negotiate and work with people, especially when you're first starting out. You know what I mean? I'd love to say that I only work a PA rate for $250 a day, but at the end of the day, there's really only a couple companies that hit me with that rate
Mhm.
consistently. You know what I mean? It's
That's
it's
fair.
just
Yeah.
it's just how it is. You know.
What do you have any projects going on right now that you're attempting to get off the floor? Obviously, with all the
Oh man, yeah.
COVID stuff,
Um,
that's
I
who
am.
knows where
You're
that's going, but
actually catching me at quite a crossroads of shit. I'm on a couple projects. I'm about to head to Georgia again, which
Oh
has
yeah.
been that's been a time. I'm working on two features back to back as crew. I just have work
sure,
as part of the ongoing schlep of just finding income so I can survive in Brooklyn.
right,
But that's been, but it's with a kind of a club of people who are. It really is interesting in Georgia. The culture of filmmaking is so different than in New York, and it's a very supportive club of filmmakers who like make features and
huh,
like have income available to make features. So it's more like once you're in the team, they'll listen to you as just a fellow creative, and so
yeah,
it's been very it's opened a lot of doors just to have conversations where you can learn a lot, and that just helps you advance. So I'm doing that. I guess that's what I'm doing physically for the next couple of months. But I after that have planned that while I'm there, I actually have 2 shorts coming up. One is called Lost Funny, exclamation mark, question mark, Lost Funny, and one called One Hit Wonder. Lost Funny is the story of a comedian whose mother passed away the year before and has spent the year trying to be funny. And is a dramedy, which is really, really close to me. And I've been sitting on the script for a long time, and I'm finally looking like it's going to get made in this upcoming spring. And I'm very excited about that. And One Hit Wonder is a polar opposite. Like, Lost Funny is a character study. It's so intimate. It's very small. And then One Hit Wonder is the story of 3 friends who go viral after one punches a pro-life protester in front of a Planned Parenthood, and it goes viral. And then it just becomes full-on Night of the Living Dead. They're trapped in their house as like the news are like, just how do we interpret this action? What does it mean? And so it's a very middle-of-the-road dude, very afraid to make an opinion while the world eats it up. And it's really fun. And it looks like that might also come to life in the spring, and that's very exciting.
All right, so nothing on your plate at all, then, is what you're saying.
No, I'm basically just sitting here drinking my Glenfiddich.
Right. How is it, by the way? How is the Glenfiddich?
It's lovely, yeah.
Flugel? What do you got over there on that mug?
It's Fluke Films. Prior to the Rona, I was employed at Scheimflug Rentals as an equipment producer, and so I have some fun gear. But they're a great company. They're a great company.
Whiskey's good.
The whiskey is fantastic.
The Glenfiddich, all right. So, I like whiskey, Biz. I want to know.
I know, man. I can't believe you didn't bring up that you owned a cidery already. Like,
I thought.
I got to give you all your cues tonight.
40 years alive, Biz.
Oh, Jesus.
Years alive. I haven't seen a whiskey I didn't like. See how I just threw that. I'm just gonna find creative ways, Biz, from now on to throw in my age. You'll see.
I like that. 10
years from now.
Our repetitive listeners are like,
crunching the numbers. They're putting the pieces together. They got little conspiracy theory boards in their closets.
So are you flying down to Georgia, or are you taking the
This time I am, because last time I didn't. Last time I don't have a car in the city, because why would I? I took a train. I took a test. I took a Corona test. And then, for those of you who are like, but I took a test and took a train to Poughkeepsie, where my parents live, and took the car and left at 6 a.m. and arrived that day in Fitzgerald, Georgia at around 11 at night, which wouldn't recommend, but I did do. And then I did back. And so they're like, and it was great. I mean, like, this is a dream come true. The fact that literally people, the set went great. And on the last day of the set, the producer literally was like, everybody, we love y'all. We're just going to copy paste this entire crew on to the next 2 productions. How do you like that? And I was like, you get a car. Hell yeah. So I was thrilled, but I was like, fuck, I gotta find a way back here. Cause it wasn't like we're starting tomorrow. It was like, this is later. So I went back home.
So are you planning on flying down then?
Yeah. So this time, yes, I'm flying down.
Have you flown since?
I haven't. I'm actually really horrified. I'm really not looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm wondering. But I always feel like some situations too. Like every time I go into a restaurant, I never see anyone flipping out about a mask and all this sorts of stuff. I mean, I'm sure it happens, but I don't think it happens as much as you would think. And I think everyone on the plane will probably be wearing a mask.
It's a world culture of passive aggressiveness. It's like you can only because my cousin moved to the city actually during all this from Florida, and so they took a plane obviously, and they there's a world of difference too, and they were like you can only have your mask off while you're eating or drinking, otherwise you are required to have a mask on while you're in flight. And so people were like, can I just have a bit more peanuts? I just want more peanuts. And the whole trip they were just like, slow because they wanted their mask off, and it's like, there's a thing going on right now. I don't know if you heard about this. Like, you got to keep that mask on your face.
Well, so the gym's opened up here too, and I work out every day, and I ended up building like a home gym here with everything I needed. But like, so I actually don't, which is good because I actually don't need a gym membership
much
anymore.
Yeah.
But I was actually contemplating going back because I kind of like being there. I don't know if you work out in the gym, but like I like being there because one, like if I'm running on the treadmill, like I'm always racing with whoever's next to me.
Yeah, you gotta kind of
know that I'm
push
doing
yourself,
but I'm racing with them or staying on it longer than they are. Same goes for like weightlifting. It makes you just like want to compete a little bit with the other people in the room. So I feel like I work out harder, or I tend to, when I'm in a gym. So they opened back up, and I contemplated going back, but like I can't imagine running with the mask on, like on a treadmill. I feel like I would honestly pass out if I did that. And then weightlifting, like when you start to breathe heavy, I just feel like it would not be,
I feel like if you took a deep enough breath, your loops would just come clean off. You just start choking on the mask. It just completely sucks in there while you're lifting weights. You're like,
yeah, you end up suffocating yourself while you're
the investment I made during coronavirus back in April, March, was I bought a bike, which, I needed a new bike having come to the city. And so that's the real cheat code for the city in general, is they have a bike. Cause you're like, oh man, I got the commute's like 40 minutes. Like I got to get on the subway, got a couple transfers. Like you got a bike and be there 20 minutes. Like it's like, you know what you're doing, watch the cars. Like, you know how to ride a bike, you're there. And I was biking all over, and like, that was the real workout investment for me. And you really can't wear, like, I have one, but like you really, it's hard to work out and have a mask on.
If you're on a bike outside, a little bit better too, because you're just out in kind of the open air. If there's open air in New York City, really, I don't even know if
I don't know if this
6 feet away from anyone.
I don't know if this lighting has made it clear, but I'm very pale, so I actually only also was biking at night, so it was like super empty, super dead, because I was like, the sun's no good. I can't. The sun. That makes no sense.
So yeah, that's kind of the reason I never ended up going back. I haven't been on a flight yet. What's funny about that comment about New York City too, and the bike is I went down there with on business, and a couple of people from Minneapolis were with me. I'd come from Minneapolis there, and I met them there, and we're staying at some hotel actually in Long Island City, and we needed to get to the Empire State Building, which is where the meeting was that we were having, right? So I'm like, well, because they wanted to Uber there.
This was during.
No, this was it was like mid 2019, so before all this.
Oh, okay.
It was just the city like normal.
It's a completely different city,
So they were like, oh, let's Uber. They just wanted to Uber because they were afraid of the train, which is like, I don't know why you're afraid of it, but all right, maybe it's just confusing for them. I can understand that, but they didn't want to take it. They refused to take it. I'm like, all right, listen, I can hop on the the F train and be at the Empire State Building in like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna take you like an hour and a half to get. And we have to be there at a particular time. I'm like, you better leave early if you're taking that. And you end up paying whatever $45.
Yeah, it's gonna be expensive
to drive there.
You're hopping boroughs, you're automatically like $20. Yeah.
Versus like what is it, $2 now, right? Or is it $2.50 or $2 now the subway?
It's like $2.75 for the train.
Is that $2.75? So.
It's terrible.
But still $2.75 to get to get to the same place you're paying $40 to. And I was there like 45 minutes early for this meeting, sitting there. They ended up being late, and I ended up having to go up and like apologize for them being late because they're trying to take an Uber. And I'm telling these people that are live in New York City, I'm like, yeah, they're from Minneapolis. Like they don't know that taking a car is going to be way longer than just hopping on a train. You know what I mean?
LA Productions come to New York City. Oh, we have 2 locations, and it's only a couple blocks away. Then we could save time.
Right, we'll just drive. Yeah, because you have to find parking then too, which is a good like 25 minutes on either side of it.
Yeah,
the traffic and all that. So,
no.
Yeah, I just found it funny. Like I called them. I'm like, listen, I'm sitting in Starbucks enjoying a nice cappuccino while I'm waiting for you guys. You're rushing to get here. Rushing. But all right. So how are you like in Brooklyn, man?
I love Brooklyn. I get into spats with. I don't know why my girlfriend doesn't like Brooklyn, but I love Brooklyn a lot. Brooklyn's where the people are. When you go to New York City, you talk about New York, the city. You're talking about Manhattan. You are talking about Manhattan, but you go to Midtown and it's disgusting. It's like the worst place on planet Earth. It's I despise Midtown. It's horrible. And so, there's a lot of beautiful parts of Manhattan. There's a lot of amazing museums. There's a lot of the Central Park is beautiful. It's more like an exhibit than an actual natural, recluse from the city, but it's still beautiful. And but Brooklyn's where people live, and so like, you just feel community here when you don't know anybody. It's not even like I'm walking around like, hey, Vinny. It's not like I'm everyone knows one another and we're all pals.
You didn't become Italian? What do you mean?
Yeah, we all just suddenly become immigrants, and it's just I was a kid. I've told this already in the episode. I was a kid in New York City and I moved to Vermont, and I would walk down the street in Vermont and I would be completely alone, and there'd be one person far on the horizon walking towards me on the sidewalk, and I would be walking past houses and trees and houses and trees like, oh, there's a person coming closer. What are we gonna and finally get close enough that you like see them, and it's just
right.
Awkward.
That was weird. And then you just keep going like, yeah, all right, on with my day, singing the Beatles or something.
Yeah.
And in New York City, it's like, oh, people are terrible in New York City. People are so mean. So New York City, if you look at someone in the eye by accident and you look at me, oh, you're like, hey, they will fucking smile at you. They're like, hey there, and then keep going. They're not trying to, know your name and stop and have a coffee, but people are really responsive and nice here. And in Brooklyn, it's just so alive because everyone lives here. Everyone's suffering through the same rent, the same kind of, rats, the same, bullshit. And so the people here are super fast, super witty, and the music, the literal music. I'm on the first floor and it get loud.
Right.
I got so many cars coming by at like 2 a.m. And
moving from Manhattan to Vermont, did you have trouble sleeping without a lot of noise happening? I found like I moved up. How long ago was that? 18 years or 19 years, I think, something like that now. And I had to have the TV on, like a fan on, car noises going on, on a sound machine, like in order to just fall asleep. Like it drove me out of my mind if it was quiet in the room when I was trying to fall asleep. I'm just wondering if anyone else has had that same.
For sure. No, that's definitely, you're not alone.
Plus, I grew up right by LaGuardia Airport.
Oh my God.
Like 76th Street was right where kind of the airport is in Queens. And then I lived on 70th Street, so 6 blocks away. I mean, literally, I don't know, 50 feet above my house.
Yeah.
Every, maybe 15 minutes, a plane was going over.
Good Lord.
But not only did I have, the sound of like Queens, but Jackson Heights was like the block I lived on was relatively like quiet compared to the rest of, the city. But
or to the
still stuff going on outside. People screaming, all that sort of stuff, honking all the time, and then just planes constantly. So like I was just so used to it. Like it took me a good like 5 to 10 years to like get used to any kind of like just quiet like that without it feeling like me getting nervous almost. Like I think we were talking about John Chodas was on a couple of episodes. He's talking about his like PTSD from growing up in like the bad parts of like Astoria, where you're constantly like on alert of what's going on around you in some sense, even though you're just kind of looking forward, your peripheral vision,
but you're listening.
Kind of happening.
But you're listening
to things. Like I know a lot of girls that I was friends with used to go on the subway and they'd put their earbuds in their ears, even though it wasn't connected to anything. So
they just
hear what was going on around them, but still it made it look like they were listening to music, so it would deter people from coming up and talking to them. Like there's all this stuff that kind of
that's a horrible reality. That is very true. I will not. I mean, New York City is. I will get real poetic about how New York City is a fantastic place, but there is a lot of horrible truths about just people. You put too many people in the same place.
It's like the one place though too where you could be around just thousands of people during the day and be completely alone, almost like you're walking through like a I don't know, like a museum of humanity as you're walking along, especially if like you have music in your ears and you're walking around. Like there's something to that I do miss living upstate, because like when I came up here, I was like I didn't have a gym membership when I was down in New York, so I
Mhm.
just walk everywhere, just walk. Like I would walk from 80th Street and Northern Boulevard in Jackson Heights down to the East Village, like over the 59th Street
Oh,
Bridge
okay.
from 59th Street all the way down to the Village, and then back home. Like it's like 30 miles or
Yeah.
whatever throughout the day, just walking in general. Stop, you get a slice of pizza or whatever.
Yeah.
So I never needed the gym when I was down there, and then I moved up here, and it changed my whole dynamic. And I think the thing that I missed the most about moving from New York City to here were those train rides. Even though the commute feels like it's a pain in the ass when you're living there all the time,
No,
right?
I'm with you.
That
Yeah.
commute where you just have your headphones on, or you're reading a book, or pretending to be listening to your headphones, or pretending to read a book so people don't bug you, like that ride over was almost like your meditation time, because everyone pretty much, except for the occasional like psychopath that does something, or subway entertainer or whatever that comes on, everybody
Let me have your attention for
yeah,
just 2 minutes. Two
right, that
minutes of
sort
your
of thing,
time.
right? Or the occasional like someone just running through the car naked or something
Yeah.
on PCP.
You got 'em.
But right, things like that.
They're around.
But even those things were kind of like it was like breaks your the mundane, and you get so used to that. But that's one thing I do miss a lot moving upstate, because you go from like your house, where
Mhm.
you're with whoever you're with in your house, into your car, and that commute along the way. I mean, I used to make friends occasionally on the subway. You just sitting
You'd
next
see
to
people.
someone,
Yeah,
or
you do see people.
someone's struggling with something. You help them get their bike or something that the doors are
Mhm.
closing on them as they're trying to get in. Like, you help them, and you end up making conversations. Picked up a lot of girlfriends on the subway too, just to say, back in the day, Biz, not like last week.
You couldn't do that now. You
Yeah.
I don't
straight
think
up
we
could
have
not pull that shit off
if
now. I'll
you're
tell you that.
if
James,
you're
I
going
could
to the
pull it off,
Rochester,
James.
if you're going to the Rochester subway, pick up
come
girls, that's
come make a point. I'd love to see it. I'd love
No,
to see
but
it.
like, so I'm just I just miss that kind of thing, and I think that the nostalgia of that for me is what I miss. What I don't is kind of some of those things too, like like getting on the subway, standing there waiting for a train, like especially on
Mhm.
the above platform ones during the winter, like the 7 train and stuff, where it's
Yeah.
just freezing and snowing, and you're waiting like 45 minutes for a train, especially late at night, if you
You
stay
should
out
get a
late at
job
night.
in Georgia for
Yeah.
December, January. That's
Yeah.
what I do.
Just go down south for maybe when I retire, I could do that.
Mm.
But yeah, what did you miss? How old were you when you moved to Vermont? You said again?
I was 11.
11. So what,
Yeah,
did you
I
miss
was
anything
still
like
a tot.
when you moved over there, or was it like?
I mean, honestly, this is like, it seems like a light, like, oh, cool. Like, tell me about them. They moved to Vermont. But that was like, honestly, like one of the most traumatic things in my life, which is pretty nice, right? Like, that's a pretty bougie,
Yeah.
comfortable life. But the culture clash was insane. I mean, I was talking about like the eye contact thing, like just like the way of life is just so insanely different. People don't, it's just different. It's just so
Right.
different in a way that you can't even try to articulate without being maybe a little offensive. And so
Yeah.
I have a lot of really great friends from Vermont still, but like the community was just so different, and it really felt, I will say, it just felt very much like you were, I guess, like the trope of like going and making it on your own when you're in the city as like a 20 something feels like it's overdone, but like a lot of people are doing that in the city. And so when you go to like a cafe or like a bar, it feels like a place that's alive and filled with people who are in the same, kind of mind space.
Right.
When I was in Vermont as a child, me and my parents were kind of in this grind of, oh, we're on our own. Like, this is a place where we're just kind of supposed to live and die working, and that's it.
Yeah.
And that's it. You're supposed to enjoy the beauty and smoke and drink, and that's it. And there was nothing else. And that was like, oh, that sounds ideal, except that there's just no humanity here. And so
Yeah.
it was very shocking. I missed the sounds. I missed the pizza, which sounds like obvious. Like, well, yeah, New York
I tried
pizza's
to move out to
fantastic.
San Diego and couldn't. I couldn't because of the pizza that I got. I went to some pizza shop, and I swear to you, it was like Elio's they were serving. They were toasting Elio's and then serving that as like the pizza out of a store. And I'm like, I can't even eat this. And I eat every pizza, Biz. Every
What
single
they
pizza.
call pizza in Vermont is like it's like it's all of those ingredients together, but it's not pizza. Like it's bread, there is tomato sauce, there might even be some cheese, but it's like not. It's just like not.
Do they throw like some evergreen needles on it too, just for the?
There's some maple syrup options there,
Right, some
and some moose fur every once in a while that just kind of rubs up in there. Actually, if we're just shouting out Vermont,
shit, we're just playing around.
I will say, if we're just shooting the shit for no reason, I will say there's a joint called Ziggy's, which was actually fantastic. Oh, New York style pizza. And I'm like, yeah. And you're like, oh, this is like really good. This is like actually fantastic. Ziggy's was fantastic, and Ramuto's, no, yeah, I don't know. There was two places that I went to.
Probably closed down by now, so.
Fair, yeah.
That's something funny about New Yorkers too. They always comment on like where in the town that they moved to get the best pizza, because especially when they're talking to another New Yorker, like, listen, if you come up, this is where you get your bagels, and this is where you get your pizza from, because it's.
Where do you get your bagels? Where do you get your bagels? When you were in Astoria, where'd you get your bagels?
In Astoria?
Yeah, I'm talking to you. Where'd you get your bagels?
On Broadway and Steinway there was a place called Broadway Naturals that was like a juice bar / bagel store, but the best. It was run by like a family of Mexicans that were down there, and then right next door was a health food store by the same family. They owned that health food store too, and they had like all these, like, I was vegan at the time, so they had all these vegetarian options. So I'd go get bagels from their family store on this side, and then I'd go and get fake like vegan chicken salad from this place, and I put them together into like a sandwich when I was outside. But same goes for here. Like if you come up to Rochester, there's a place called Brooklyn Pizza out in Henrietta that does like New York style, like real.
You just threw me under a bus just now. Holy shit! Oh, really? Brooklyn Pizza in Henrietta. Okay.
Yeah, in Henrietta, New York. But
for context, I don't know if you know this. Do you know this? Did Biz tell you this?
No,
what? I mean, obviously, I worked with Biz in my film schools. That was RIT. Yeah. So I'm actually fairly well versed in Rochester, at least to a degree. I won't call myself an expert, but I do know. I've never heard of that place.
Brooklyn Joe's. I'm sorry, it's called Brooklyn Joe's.
Okay.
Pizza. So
next time I visit, I'll take a gander.
There's one in Fairport, and not to go against Patrick or to throw this business under the bus, but it was the worst fucking Western New York pizza I've ever eaten in my day, and I literally eat.
We're always looking for sponsors. You can't throw some.
I'll see myself out. You guys can keep that out. Oh my goodness!
One. I don't even want that sponsor if they come knocking.
Where's the pizza at? That's the real.
The bagel thing too. I mean, there's like Wegmans here that does decent bagels, but there's a place that does like Bialys, which you can't get anywhere.
I prefer
in, like New York City, like good Bialys, but there's some like little Jewish bakery down on what is that called? 7 corners or 5 corners?
12 corners.
12 corners.
Just picking on numbers.
We're just now, but
64 corners.
I don't want to promote it too much so that everyone goes there and steals.
No, the good spot though. I know where you're talking about. They're the ones that have like the glass display. They let you see. They let you see it like being made right there. Yeah. But there's another spot actually right down the road from there. If you follow Winton Road. Northbound towards like everything up there. There's a spot called Balsam Bagels, BALSAM. They have probably my favorite bagels in the city.
I'll have to check it out. Yeah, we're getting hyper local now with all our.
Yeah.
What's your bagel store in New York City? Where are you going in Brooklyn to get your stuff?
I gotta say, so when I'm in Brooklyn, there's Knickerbocker Bagel, which is appropriately on Knickerbocker Ave, and when I'm
did you have a childhood pizza place that you always went to, like as a kid, that you remember before Vermont?
It fucking closed, man. I am so heartbroken. So I grew up in the Upper West Side, I said, and my girlfriend lives around there, and there was a place on 88th and Broadway around there called Hot and Crusty. And their bagels were good, their pizza was good, and their fucking chocolate babka was to die for. And I straight up would get that shit every time my grandparents visited us, and it was tradition. And I went back there like a year ago, and it was there. And I straight up walked in like some child, and I walked in like, I came here a lot when I was a little boy, and I would buy a chocolate babka, and it's just, I'm really happy to buy another one today. And they were like, that's fantastic. Can you get the fuck out? And I was like,
give us your money and get out.
All right, sure. And then I came back like 4 months later, and it was just gone.
Shoe store.
It's like, and that meant it had been there for like 20 years.
That happened.
It had been there.
Two of my favorite pizza places. One was Rizzo's on Steinway Street. They made square slices. They actually made their own mozzarella in the back.
Okay.
They had these square. They weren't like real Sicilian slices, but they were like just square. It was excellent. And then they changed owners, and then they started offering like 50 cents a slice thing, and it just was garbage. But when last time I went back there,
I was like, wow.
If we charge nothing for it, expectations can be low.
There was another place that was on Broadway and Steinway Street too, that just recently in the last year they closed down too, which I'm super upset about, because it was like the last place that I really went to when I was a kid and teenager. All right, so
but I'll shout out now. I go on like 101st Street on Broadway. On Broadway, yeah. Broadway or Amsterdam? Don't quote me on that. Broadway. I'm an idiot. It's on Broadway because it's Broadway Bagel, is what it is.
There you go.
It's Broadway Bagel. I go to other places. They're like the bagels are squished and they're tiny. It's a big bagels.
Yeah.
And great cream cheese.
Let me
lox.
ask you this. I'm going to find out how much. Do you know what an egg cream is?
An egg cream?
Yeah.
I feel like I do know the answer, and I don't right now. Stuff. And as soon as you tell me what it is, I'm going to be like,
I think that's a big Queens thing too.
Egg cream. I don't know. I do know what that is. My parents are mad at me right now. I do know what that is.
We talked about it on a previous episode. That's just one of my things from New York City. No one outside of New York knows.
No, I do. This is killing me. I do know what that is.
Chocolate syrup, milk, seltzer.
It's a drink. Yeah, that's what I was. It's and you put an egg in it.
No eggs in it. So that's the thing. It sounds, because it's called egg cream, but it's got just milk and seltzer and some sort of chocolate syrup or vanilla syrup.
I'm actively thinking about something else then. There is something with an egg in it
because it froths up. It kind of looks like there's something else in it, but
it seems like it would be so frothy adding seltzer to it.
Yeah, it does. It's weird, but it's good. Like it's maybe we should try and I'll make one.
I think you should make one for the next episode. Drink that on the show.
That's the drink. Then there's no sponsor money, Biz. There's no sponsor money. Come on.
So I think we're at like an hour and a half here. So James, before we go here, let's pimp out your stuff and let's see if this goes right this time.
Yeah.
Biz. So just websites that people can find you at. I guess your Facebook, Instagram, whatever you want people to to go to.
Facebook, Instagram, and my website. Caramel Hippo Studios, caramelhippostudios.com. There's no other Caramel Hippo Studios in the world. If there is, I need to sue them because I was first. I'm independent short, music video. If you're an independent artist and are looking to bring your vision to life, got a lot of references and stuff to make awesome collaborative work. Love character study, love narrative, multimedia, editing, producing, directing, writing. We make movies because we love to. Script coverage, all that good stuff. I'm your guy.
All right, so Caramel
Hippo Studios. I keep thinking, it's super memorable. Caramel Studios.
Yeah, I'm just because people, you got to spell it out sometimes, James. So
I will.
I definitely. So I was down probably every other month in 2019 down in the city. So next time I'm down there, maybe we'll get together and we'll
grab a beer, my friend.
Have a whiskey somewhere or whatever.
For sure.
Because my brother still lives in the Bronx, so I gotta visit him at some point. He's
the Bronx
in like a year. Yeah,
so
Bronx
far.
is changing. But James, thanks for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate it. It was
Thank you for having me.
Talking to you. Shoot us any links that you want in the future here. And
we'll do.
Everyone listening, just remember that any of the links we post, any of the drinks or things we talk about, merchandise, stuff like that during the show, if you click on the links in the post, it helps the show out. We get a little bit of pocket change from that, and Biz doesn't have to eat out of someone else's garbage every night because he gets to order McDonald's chicken nuggets. But all of you guys, thank you so much for listening, and you're listening to Infiltrate Radio, and we'll talk to you guys next time. Infiltrate Radio.